Wealth can build you the tallest walls, but sometimes it also keeps you far from the people you love most. Ethan Callaway, a tech billionaire in New York, was a man the world knew for his sharp business mind and endless ambition. But to his 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, he was simply a stranger in a suit. For months, Ethan had been traveling, meetings in London, deals in Dubai, conferences in San Francisco. Sophie was left at their luxurious Manhattan penthouse under the care of a maid. Danielle Brooks, a quiet black woman in her 30s with warm eyes and a patient smile. To Ethan, Danielle was just the help. To Sophie, she was the only person who listened, laughed, and sang her to sleep at night. One Friday evening, without sending word ahead, Ethan decided to fly home early. He wanted to surprise his daughter. But the surprise would be his. The elevator doors opened into the penthouse. The lights were dim, and Ethan immediately noticed something unusual. The sound of laughter, Sophie's laughter. It had been so long since he'd heard it, he almost didn't recognize it. He followed the sound to the playroom, where the door was slightly ajar. Inside, Danielle sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by blankets and pillows, holding a flashlight under her chin. Sophie, wearing a paper crown, sat beside her, hanging on every word. Danielle was telling a story, not from a book, from memory. And the princess didn't need a knight, because she had her own sword, Danielle said, making Sophie giggle. Ethan stood frozen. This was no formal bedtime story. This was magic. Sophie looked happier than he had ever seen her. When Danielle noticed him in the doorway, she stood up quickly. "Mr. Callaway, I didn't know you were home." Over dinner, Ethan tried to talk to Sophie, but she answered in short sentences, eyes darting toward Danielle in the kitchen. Something inside him twisted. Later that night, he pulled Danielle aside. "You're very involved with Sophie," he said cautiously. Danielle's smile was soft but steady. "She needs someone to talk to, someone who's here. Sir, she tells me she misses you every night." Those words hit harder than any business loss he had ever taken. Ethan realized he had been buying toys, clothes, and gadgets to fill the void his absence created. But Sophie didn't need more things. She needed love. Still, he wasn't ready to admit it. "That's my job as her father," he said stiffly. Danielle looked him straight in the eye. "Then do it." The next morning, Ethan woke earlier than usual to find Sophie and Danielle in the living room. Danielle had set up a school with worksheets, crayons, and flashcards. Sophie was reading aloud, really reading, and her little voice was confident. "You can read that?" Ethan asked in surprise. "She's been practicing every day," Danielle said with pride. "We started with picture books, then fairy tales. She's a fast learner." Ethan's jaw tightened. He remembered the expensive private tutor he'd hired months ago, the one Sophie hated. That tutor was all credentials and no heart. Danielle, without a single degree in teaching, had given Sophie something far more powerful, belief in herself. Then Sophie said something that stopped him cold. "Daddy, Miss Danielle says I can be anything I want, even if people don't believe me." It was then Ethan realized Danielle wasn't just cleaning his house, she was building his daughter's future. That night, Ethan asked Danielle to join him after Sophie was asleep. "I owe you more than a paycheck," he began. "You've been more of a parent to my daughter than I've been these past months." Danielle shook her head. "She's your little girl, Mr. Callaway. She just needs you to show up every day in whatever way you can." For the first time in years, Ethan felt tears threaten. He made a decision, not for his company, but for his child. He canceled his next overseas trip and set a new rule: no more than 2 weeks away from home at a time. From then on, Ethan didn't just attend Sophie's big moments. He was there for the little ones too, reading bedtime stories, drawing silly pictures, baking messy cupcakes. And Danielle, she stayed on, not just as an employee, but as part of the family. Ethan often said she gave him the greatest return on investment he'd ever received, a relationship with his daughter. Because, in the end, the real surprise that night wasn't what Danielle did for Sophie. It was what she taught Ethan about being a father. What are your thoughts on this story? Comment and subscribe. Lifelines.